reflect back on the last 2 years, there are many different people who have educated and motivated us to stand up to tyranny, no? But there are very few people, as I think back, that have taken the time to explain to us the depth of what it really means to be free and how to protect those God-given rights. And I would argue that there are very few people in this province, if not this country, that have inspired us with the grace, integrity, dignity, respect, kindness, compassion, resilience, and determination that Tanya Gaw has. There are but few people that from the beginning gave us hope and something to work towards in order to hold our BC government accountable for what they were doing to our children, the elderly, our businesses, and our churches. And because of Action for Canada, there are thousands upon thousands of you that have depended on this website for the notices of liability when you had nowhere else to turn, when you were fighting to keep your job or to unmask your children at school. Undoubtedly, Action for Canada has been more effective at pulling together teams of volunteers for some of the most direct hitting campaigns in this country. I changed mics here, Chair?
Which one? 2 seconds, guys.
Test, test, okay. I'm just going to go back there for a second. So, and because of Action for Canada, there are thousands upon thousands of you that have depended on this website for the notices of liability when you had nowhere else to turn to, and when you were fighting to keep your job or unmask your children at school. And undoubtedly, Action for Canada has been more effective at pulling together teams of volunteers for some of the most direct hitting campaigns in this country, including writing letters to every MLA, MP, senator, and government official, every mainstream media outlet, and also every single school superintendent in BC, holding them personally liable for the coercion of the forced vaccines. Action for Canada has been relentless in keeping the pressure on the school boards, which has resulted in almost half of them voting against the mandates for teachers and EAs, which has saved thousands of jobs. And they won't stop the pressure until every last one of them does what is right. It would be easy for me to keep lifting this woman up all day long, and the dedicated team that she has attracted to Action for Canada, as she and her team have done so much than what I've already mentioned. Tanya, there are so many of us that are indebted to you. Where are you? So many of us that are indebted to you for your dedication to saving this province and for armoring every one of us to stand in this battle. And lastly, for bringing us all a little closer to God. We are forever grateful for all you have done and continue to do. Please show some immense gratitude to my friend, Tanya Gaw.
To be here. Danielle, you got me tearing up. It has been a humongous journey. It has been a God journey. It has been a God-inspired journey. And I believe that Action for Canada is definitely a work of the Lord. And I give Him praise and glory for what is happening across this nation. It is truly miraculous. I'll be filling you in. But first, I want to start as I always do, and I hope you'll join me in thanking God for the land we're standing on. So I'm going to thank God and God alone for the ground that I'm standing on. That's who we worship and we praise and we thank. This is God's country. And we cannot be deceived by a global cabal believing that we need to hand this land over to anybody. We need to get back to the roots of what our founding fathers gifted us with. And I never get tired of saying this at every single rally I speak at, because I think it's number one. What the government has done for decades is they've repeated a lie often enough that it's become people's truth. I don't know how many of you who are new here today who have never heard this message. For you, I am going to speak it again. I am going to speak this truth until the truth is once again celebrated in this country as truth. The truth is that Canada is a Judeo-Christian nation, inherited through our British Commonwealth, and it is based on the principles of the Bible. Those principles are embedded in our Magna Carta, forming our laws and our values, providing us a system of governance. So amazing. It's a system of governance that is over any other in any other part of the world, giving you the freedom to believe or not to believe without fear of persecution, oppression, and even death. Is that worth celebrating and embracing today? God is on the throne. He is perfectly aware of everything that's going on in Canada. But when countries turn their back on Him and evil starts to creep into a land, He allows it until it gets to a point where people can no longer manage it any longer, and they finally get back and get on their knees. They begin to repent for what came into their land, and they pray and they ask God to heal their land, because it comes with a promise. The other thing that we need to do, because the government, I want you to know, they've only hit a pause button. This so-called fraudulent pandemic is not over. They are not done with you yet. They have hit the pause button. Danielle, can we turn the music down just a smidgy? I want you to know what's coming in the fall. They are going to hit you harder than ever. They are letting you above the water right now for a moment to breathe, to let you think it's over, but they've lifted restrictions across Canada. They have not rescinded the phony emergency provincial orders. The acts are still very much in place, but as I've always said, they were passed illegally and unlawfully, and they aren't worth the paper they're printed on, because they never demonstrably proved that we were in a pandemic, and they never had public input and debate. They totally bypassed the legislature. That's a problem. And the beauty of it all is that we didn't have to go along with any of it.
Amen.
Because even if it was a true emergency, the Federal Emergency Act says that nothing supersedes your rights under the Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So please remember that. So what we need to do in these next months, as they give you a little room to breathe without that mask on, is we need to continue to mobilize the masses and work together toward the greatest shift in government this country has ever witnessed. The Bible says in Deuteronomy 1:13, choose for yourselves wise, understanding, and respected men from each of your tribes, and I will appoint them as your leaders. We have provinces and territories in this country, and we need to call on God to raise up incredible men and women to lead. Men and women of integrity. Men and women who understand the issues and are willing to speak against them with every fiber of their being. We need to know who we vote for and where they stand on critical issues. And speaking of critical issues, let's talk about some taboo issues right now. Normally we get up here and we talk about COVID. We talk about the notices of liability, which I want you to know are having a huge impact still. 30 school boards in BC have voted no to the mandate. There are probably more, but they're trying to hide the decisions. One of those school boards was Nanaimo, who a few weeks ago had voted yes, but they reversed their decision because our chapter leaders were on them, letting them know further about their liability. We have teams across BC who are continuing to work and educate the trustees to let them know that they will be held personally liable. I've had, with the City of Surrey, as I've said, success, where they ended up lifting mandated vaccines and removed the threat to put individuals on city staff on unpaid leave. I helped another gal this last week who was unexpectedly terminated. She found out on a Saturday that on Sunday she would be terminated because they tricked her into checking that box saying she wasn't going to get a vaccine. Underneath, she signed her signature, and underneath that is where they put, if you had ticked no, then you will be terminated. If you're in that situation, you have rights. What your employer has done is unlawful. They cannot put you on unpaid leave. So make sure you go to the Action for Canada tent. Make sure you join Action for Canada and make sure you get the resources. Because after I ended up creating letters for this young woman to send to her union, which was telling her to accept it and then he'd file a grievance, we outed him in front of the mayor and city council of that city. He was furious that people knew about his shady dealings with the HR person at the city. We exposed it all, and she has been reinstated. Now they've reinstated her and put her on unpaid leave, but we're pushing further. Because as of the 8th, this is all apparently going to lift as far as the restrictions are concerned in BC and other provinces anyways. It's a game. It's a vicious game against humanity. So we need to know who we're voting for, and Action for Canada is going to work very hard to replace them at all levels of government. But what I want to talk to today, thank you Peter. What I want to talk to you about today, because you can go on our webpage, tons of videos about notices of liability. I want to talk to you about what they're doing behind the scenes. What they've been doing for years to break down our sovereignty and democracy in this nation because they hate God. They are anti-God because God, a nation built on God, is the key to our democracy and freedoms because biblical standards are good values. So I'm going to talk a bit about critical race theory right now, which is absolutely devouring public institutions. Marxism is at the core, and these are some of the catchphrases using identity politics and soft language to advance their agenda over the years. Equity, social justice, diversity and inclusion. I've had it up to here with the diversity and inclusion and the tolerance with no limits. We have been a kind Canada, and they're trying to use our virtues as a nation against us. The aim is to break down democracy and capitalism through the critical race theory by shaming the masses into believing they are bad people if they are not fully accepting and tolerant of their global plan to divide and destroy the free world. But tolerance must have limits, and in order to maintain our sovereignty, which, like I say, is founded on Judeo-Christian principles, we need to boldly expose the lies and call it what it is. Marxism and fascism. Critical race theory promotes prejudice against Anglophones, claiming white supremacy and superiority. So the Anglophones who fought and died for individual equality against racism and the evolution of slavery are now being demonized, and racial equity is being celebrated as it seeks to divide the world into competing racial groups and ensure race-based equality of outcomes while endorsing active racial discrimination to get there. We have to think critically about the message that the UN and the government leaders are putting out. We can't be silenced so that we don't talk about these incredibly important issues. The actual plan in doing this is to suspend property rights and seize land and wealth from the rich. It's not even going to come from the rich, my friends. It's going to come from the middle class, which they're destroying through this. and to redistribute it. What you need to understand as well is you hear about a lot about the Indigenous land rights. And I've said that's why I come up here and I proclaim this land to God first. Because the government does not care about the Indigenous people. Trudeau has proved that for 6.5 years. He's done nothing for them. I love them, and you care about them. But I no longer want to hear about them and us. I want it to be we. Currently in the school system is critical race theory because it is seeping in at warp speed. Students are coming home after telling their parents, this is actually what's being taught in class, saying students, straight, white, single Christian males, are being told in the public school systems that they were part of the oppressor class and must atone for their white supremacy. Can you imagine this? I thought we had a colorblind society. I look at my friends who are from the Philippines, China, wherever they're from, and I don't see the color of their skin. And their kids in school didn't see that as well. But now they're being forced into this. It's up to us adults to get involved and protect them. There is also an agenda to twist the minds of our youth, break down the natural family and remove parental rights. And it has been in the works for decades. The education system has become a political war zone, and the casualties of this war are our children. As a result of the UN Comprehensive Sexual Education Program, which I speak about frequently, it has been implemented into our schools, and our children are being indoctrinated en masse into unscientific thinking about their natural gender, and as a result, there is a rapid onset of gender dysphoria. In less than a decade, there has been a 1,460% increase in boys now saying they're a girl, and a staggering 5,337% increase in girls who no longer identify as their natural sex. These are numbers since 2019. I can tell you it's probably tripled since then. And the pharmaceutical companies are the ones that are benefiting, because these young people are being put on drugs and they will be on them for the rest of their lives. Many of them are having their bodies permanently mutilated, having their breasts removed, uterus removed, and there is great regret once they come to the other side to realize. It is pervasive in our schools. In the Langley Arts Center school, I just learned after speaking of this, an 11-year-old girl came home and told her mom that she's no longer a girl, but a boy. She is the 5th child in that class. That's not including what's going on in that school. They are being indoctrinated into a harmful agenda, and we have to have the courage to speak out and talk about this. Just briefly, because I know I'm going over time here, I'm sorry, I always do. Under the newly passed Bill C-4, if a parent now does not support this child coming home, and the ministry finds out about it and they don't take them to a gender dysphoria clinic, that parent is at threat of spending 5 years in prison. The Conservative Party voted in favor of this bill. Don't be fooled by Pierre Poliver. Don't be fooled by the Conservative Party right now, my friends. They have been missing in action for 2 years. They promoted the vaccination, they voted in favor of Bill C-4, and now they're finding a voice, finally, after the brave and courageous truckers stood up and drove across this land and initiated a rise up of millions of Canadians, finally giving them a voice. Now the elected officials find their voice to stand up for you. We need to remember this come the election. Children are intentionally being taught the unscientific and deviant agenda, backed and supported by the United Nations and globalist elites. Pedophilia is rampantly entering our society and school systems as they groom children and expose them to adult sexual proclivities and explicit material, all under the guise of equity, social justice, and diversity and inclusion. It is not loving any longer to support these agendas. How do we stop this? And I say at the grassroots level, join Action for Canada. Join a chapter. We have Vancouver, Langley, all throughout the Lower Mainland. We have 150 chapters nationwide, and we're shooting for a minimum of 338 to be in every riding. Because, woo! Come on! Because our mission is absolutely 100% to replace everyone at all levels of government who have been going along with this. School trustees, mayors, city councils, MPPs, MLAs, and MPs. And this is the community that's going to bring about change. If you don't like the mayor of Vancouver and city council, then join the chapter, and then make sure we're going to recruit really good people of integrity to run for office, and we're going to get them a win. We've already done it with 2 school trustees running in districts up north. 2 stepped down in October, and in January there was a vote, and our chapters got involved, and they supported 2 particular leaders who were on our side, and both of them won their seat. We need to do this nationwide. We're also creating a youth movement, and we are very, very focused because we need to invest in our youth. They are the future of this nation. So we have a course starting on April 1st, and it is to empower youth, to give them a voice, how they can stand up, speak to their peers, and to the authorities in their lives. Dr. Greg Gary, who's with us here today, is going to be doing the training and educating of our youth. It starts April 1st, it's nationwide, and I am just so excited about this. We need to invest in our youth. His motto is, right heart, right mind, right voice, right action. So the key is our youth. So I'm going to ask you now for your support, because these initiatives with Action for Canada, we are literally saving jobs and saving lives. We have committed chapter leaders across this nation who are pouring everything in to building up communities like this in order to take action, in order to support each other, in order to support the person that's lost their job, that may need some income, that may need some assistance. This is what love is truly about. Anyway, so please donate to Action for Canada, become a monthly donor, help us on the mission that we are commencing across this nation. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless Canada.